Picture this: Paris Fashion Week. Flashing cameras, velvet ropes, the soft clink of champagne glasses in the hands of the elite. Every major celebrity is in the room. Photographers are firing off shots. Editors are scribbling furiously. But you know who's missing? Meghan Markle. No front row seat, no brand tag, not even a quiet mention on the guest list. And that silence? That was deliberate. Because fashion isn't just glamour. It's a high-stakes poker game played with silk, egos, and influence. It's about power, presence, and who gets to be seen. And Meghan, she just got the signal, subtle but unmistakable, that her seat at the table is gone. Now rewind for a moment. This isn't about whether Meghan looks good in couture. Of course she does. Her aesthetic is flawless. Crisp, understated, effortlessly royal. Her influence once turned brands into headlines overnight. But recently something changed behind the curtain. Balenciaga, once eager to ride her wave, went silent. And they weren't alone. One by one, the big fashion houses followed suit. No scandal, no statement, just nothing. And in fashion, nothing can be the loudest message of all. What's happening here isn't just a case of, maybe she didn't feel like going. That's the PR version. The reality? She was frozen out. One insider says her name was on the list, until suddenly it wasn't. Designers looked at it and said, not this season. Some PR teams didn't even bother to reply. Others gave the classic, we're at full capacity, which in fashion speak is basically a polite middle finger. But the real question is, why now? This isn't coincidence. It's strategy. A quiet form of exile that only happens when the stakes are high and everyone wants clean hands. And Meghan, whether she meant to or not, walked straight into it. According to industry whispers, the fashion world operates like any elite power circle. It thrives on control. And Meghan? She's the definition of unpredictable. One week it's a lawsuit, the next a podcast or a Netflix deal. She doesn't just appear, she shifts the narrative. But in luxury fashion, in the unpredictable world of royal gossip, it doesn't take brands much for a whisper to explode into a wildfire. One perfectly curated image, one unexplained gap in the timeline, and suddenly an entire alternate version of history. Too many opinions, and right now, few rumors are spreading faster than the ones suggesting. And when your name starts to represent controversy, even unintentionally, the luxury world quietly steps back. But here's where it gets interesting. This isn't just another baseless internet fashion house. It's a story filled with layers, $10 million crafting the perfect show, and one particular you want the spotlight on your design that keeps raising your models. Let's rewind for a second. Meghan's second Meghan walks in straightforward. Every she grew up in California, attended a Catholic high school, took a gap year, and later enrolled at Northwestern University. Nothing controversial about that, at least entirely on perception. But skeptics claim that this kind of distraction is lethal. May have been less about self-discovery or travel, and more about covering up a rushed teenage marriage. Some insiders claim this wasn't just a string of independence. The birth of a daughter who would now be in her 30s. That revelation would completely legacy fashion house with overnight the picture of a polished image control transforms into that of a woman who may have quietly left behind an earlier and everyone else. The Giuliano name is in fashion when one gatekeeper internet detectives have pieced together hints suggesting that no one wants to be the last one standing and that their relationship may have escalated far faster than most realized. Some even allege that their daughter, supposedly sources say was born around scrambled once the freeze became undeniable. And that's where the story starts to blur. If this daughter truly exists, why has she never spoken out? Trying to make it seem like her absence was by choice. In Las Vegas, but let's be honest, Meghan's teenage years. Those confidential files are what fuel most of the speculation. This wasn't vanity, because if it were just a strategy, mistake, an annulment, or short-lived romance, why keep those records buried decades later? Meghan Markle, Hollywood and royal style run on carefully crafted images. Just Meghan has spent years shaping hers as someone authentic, open, and unafraid to speak her truth. Even when it defies the royal institution. But if she really did leave behind no leaked memo while reinventing herself, that would directly challenge the very foundation of her public persona. And that's because in fashion refuses to disappear. When they want you it's not just salacious they don't announce it's a potential contradiction to everything Meghan has claimed to stand for. They go quiet. According to some theories, the Giuliano family quietly took responsibility for raising Noel, allowing Meghan to pursue her Hollywood ambitions graceful erasure. Some even believe the family didn't just remain silent, but actively protected from it, shielding her reputation, and the industry made sure to new life. That portrayal as one fashion executive who may have traded personal connections for career success. And let's be honest, that idea hits hits differently when the
That's how
alleged
precise the
sacrifice
message
involves a
was.
child,
Not
Make
just
no
distant
mistake,
relatives or old
this wasn't
friends.
random
Adding more
or
fuel to the
reactive.
speculation
It was
is
calculated,
Meghan's own slip of the
coordinated.
tongue.
During a Netflix
Executives,
chat with Chrissy
stylists,
Teigen, she made a
publicists,
joking remark
all
about
quietly
a child
aligned.
you've never heard of.
Because
She
no one
laughed
in
it off,
couture
but
wanted to
fans
be the
have
one
analyzed
brand
that
left
moment
holding the
endlessly.
Meghan
Was it
Markle
just an
narrative.
offhand joke
Behind the
or a
scenes,
subtle
Meghan's
nod to
team
the
was
very
working
rumors
overtime.
she knew was
They
circulating?
reached out to
Meghan's been known to
stylists
joke around,
she'd
but when
collaborated with in the
conspiracy
past,
theories are already
hoping to
running wild,
secure
every
even a
word she
single
says is
partnership.
scrutinized. Then there's
But
the
the replies
filmmaker
that came
angle,
back,
a controversial
polite
documentarian
and hollow.
named Ulrich Grunwald,
One brand
reportedly
rep summed it
uncovered
up with a
whispers
single
about
line.
the supposed daughter
We're
while researching
prioritizing
Meghan and
quieter
Harry's
stories
stories.
this
His
season.
documentary,
That
Harry,
said
the
everything.
Lost Prince,
Meghan,
never
once
mentioned
the
the
moment,
alleged
had
child
become the
directly.
noise.
But once the rumor
And in
hit
fashion,
the web, it
noise
spread like
kills.
wildfire.
Online
Designers
forums
crave
exploded
control
with theories.
They
And
want their
suddenly
creations
every
to
blurry
speak louder
photo
than the
or
people
vague
wearing
comment
them. From Meghan's
But when
past
Meghan
became
enters a
evidence,
room,
the
story
strangest
shifts.
twist of all
It's
is
no
the name
longer
Noel
about
itself.
itself.
Meghan's
It's
estranged
about her,
half-sister,
the
Samantha
Duchess,
Markle,
the
has a daughter
lawsuits,
named Noel
the
Rasmussen,
royal
who
rift,
happens to be in her
the
early
Netflix
30s.
deal,
That coincidence
the
sent
endless
online
tabloid
investigators
cycle.
into a frenzy.
Some
For an
claim
industry
Noel
built
isn't
on
Samantha's
illusion,
daughter at all,
that
but
kind
Meghan's
of reality
secretly
is
raised
toxic.
under another identity.
Insiders
There's no
are
solid
calling
proof,
it
of course,
fashion,
but the
overlap
overlap
keeps
social
the
speculation alive.
Executed
Regardless of
not
what
with
anyone
drama,
believes,
but
one
with
fact
silence.
remains hard to ignore.
No
Meghan has
confrontations,
sealed court records in
no
Nevada,
statements,
a missing year she's
just
never
elegant
explained, and a
ghosting.
public image that could
And the
suffer
cruelty
immensely
of it all,
if even a fragment
because
of
no
this
one
turned
ever
out to
says
be
it out
true.
loud.
And in today's
Meghan
world,
can't
where
call it
secrets
what it
rarely
is.
stay buried,
If she
people
pushes
can't help
back,
but wonder,
she risks
how long
looking
can she
paranoid.
keep this under wraps?
Or worse,
if this
bitter.
alleged daughter
They'll
ever
shrug
does
and
come
say,
forward,
the
the
entire
blacklisted
royal narrative could
what
be rewritten.
blacklist? Court records
But
carry
she
an
knows.
almost mythical
Everyone
weight in the
knows.
world of conspiracy.
It's the
They're those
ultimate power
dusty
move.
sealed files
Deny
that either
access
confirm
without
everything
ever
or
admitting
keep
the
people
door was
guessing
closed.
forever.
In
And then
Meghan's
there's the
case,
royal
the
angle.
documents tied
Not
to Las
overt,
Vegas
but
sit
whispered.
right at the center of
Fashion
the
has
speculation.
always
People
been
can't
drawn to
help but
royalty.
wonder,
What could
the
possibly
tradition,
be so
the
sensitive that
restraint,
it's still locked
the
away decades
pristine
later?
image.
If it was just a
Brands
teenage
with royal
marriage gone
patrons
wrong,
don't want
why not
friction.
unseal it?
They
That
want
single
elegance.
question has become
And
fuel
Meghan,
for
wrapped in
every rumor
controversy,
circling
whether she
online.
invites
Some
it or
argue
not,
the secrecy
no
hides
longer
a
fits
truth
that
that could
narrative.
shatter
The Duchess's
rumor has
carefully
it one
crafted
major
image,
legacy
while others
house,
insist it's
a
nothing
cornerstone
more than
of
the internet
couture.
chasing shadows.
Quietly
Either
spread
way,
the
the
word.
mystery surrounding
No
those files
collaborations,
is what keeps
no
the theory
invitations.
alive.
Then there's Meghan's
Not this
so-called
season.
missing year.
Officially,
Whether
she
the motive
described
was
it as a
protecting
gap year
royal
between high
alliances
school and
or
Northwestern.
avoiding
But critics
unwanted
point out
headlines.
how little is
The
actually
outcome
known
was the
about
same.
where she went,
Meghan
or what
Markle,
she did.
for someone
Once
whose
the
life
darling of
story is
fashion's
usually
front
mapped out
row
in precise detail,
found
that
herself
vague
frozen
period
out.
stands out like
What
a blank
makes this
page.
so
Skeptics
brutal is
believe
how
it wasn't
seamless
about
it
travel
was.
or self-discovery.
She didn't walk
at
into
all,
a
but
room
about
and get turned
concealing
away.
a rushed marriage.
She
a
never even
pregnancy,
made it to
and
the
the
door.
birth of a child.
No
whose
front row
existence
seats,
could have
no
derailed
designer
Meghan's
tags,
ambitions before
no
they ever
flash
began.
bulbs
For
catching
royal
her in
watchers,
couture.
that unexplained gap
And yet,
is the one
Meghan
crack
was
in
in
the
the
glass that
She
refuses
was
to
there.
disappear. The
Just not
Giuliano
where
cameras
family cared to
allegedly
look.
tied to this hidden
That's
chapter
the art of
has become a
exclusion.
key part of the
When done
gossip
by
puzzle.
professionals,
Those who claim to
it
know
doesn't
them
embarrass
describe
you.
them as
It
traditional,
erases
private,
you.
and fiercely
No
loyal.
statement,
They're said to
no
have stepped in to
confrontation,
quietly raise
just
a baby
quiet
girl
invisibility.
while Meghan went on to
But
chase
this
her
isn't
Hollywood
just
dreams.
about
If that's
fashion.
true, it
The
paints a
ripple
striking
effect is
contrast.
reaching
One
far
family
beyond the
keeping their
runway.
world silent
Hollywood
and
is
grounded,
paying
the other
attention.
daughter rising
The
to
media
global
is
fame.
watching.
Her every move
Even
dissected by
investors are
cameras.
reading the
That
signs.
split alone is enough
Her
to
lifestyle
captivate
brand,
anyone's imagination.
the one
and if
meant
it were
to
ever
debut this
proven,
year
the
with
emotional
luxury
fallout
fashion
would be
and beauty
unimaginable.
tie-ins.
The rumors
Has
take
hit
an
a
even
slowdown.
sharper turn when
Some
the name
brands
Noel
are
comes
reassessing.
up. Conspiracy theorists
Others
claim
are
that
waiting
this
for the
woman,
so-called
now in her early
right
30s,
time,
might actually
which
be
everyone
Meghan's
knows is code
biological
for.
daughter.
The
Let's see if she
complication,
bounces
Noel is
back
officially
or
recognized
disappears.
as Samantha Markle's
Even in the
daughter,
streaming
not
world,
Meghan.
there's
But to those
hesitation.
who believe the
No
theory,
new headline
that's
deals.
simply too
No
convenient.
blockbuster
They argue her
interviews.
parentage was quietly
She's
altered
still
to
visible,
protect Meghan's
but
image
the energy
at a
around
crucial
her has
time.
dimmed.
Of course, there's
It's
no
not
DNA
hate,
test,
no
it's
confession,
exhaustion.
no photograph.
People
Nothing
are tired
that
of the
definitively
noise,
proves
the
any of it,
narrative,
but that's the slippery
constant
nature of
spectacle.
gossip.
The absence
And when
of
an
evidence
audience
becomes
grows
its
tired,
own kind of
the
proof
spotlight
in
doesn't
the eyes
shift.
of those who want
It
to
shuts
believe.
off.
Public perception
Of course,
is another layer that
Meghan's
makes
been
this story
underestimated
so
before.
powerful. Meghan has
But
built
this
her
time,
brand around being
the
a
chill
rule
runs
breaker,
deeper.
someone who stands for
not
truth,
one brand pulling
authenticity,
back.
and self-empowerment.
It's an
But that
entire
image doesn't leave
ecosystem
much
pressing
room for
pause.
whispers about an
And
abandoned
in
child.
industries
If
built
even
on
a
momentum,
fragment of the rumor
even
were
a
true,
pause can
critics
feel like
argue
the
that
end.
her entire
There's
narrative
a
of
saying in
strength and
fashion,
integrity could
"You're
crumble into
only as
something
relevant
far
as
less
your last
flattering.
front
A
row."
story of secrecy,
And right now,
sacrifice,
Meghan
and
Markle's
ambition
seat
at
is
the
cold.
expense of family.
But this
the kind
isn't
of
just a
plot
fashion
tabloids
setback.
live for, and the
It's a
public can't
reputation
resist because
reset.
it flips the
The chill
script
from
from a woman
Paris
who
didn't
has
stay
spent
on the runway.
years controlling her
It
own.
spread
Still,
across the
Meghan's
industry.
life has
And
always
now
been
everyone's
shaped by
asking the same
speculation.
question.
From her early
Is
Hollywood
Meghan
days
Markle
to her
still
royal
bankable?
marriage, she's been
Some
labeled
insiders
everything
say the
from a
freeze-out wasn't
trailblazer
just
to a
rejection.
manipulator.
The idea
It was
of
a
a hidden
reality
child
check.
fits neatly
A
into
quiet
that
way to
ongoing
humble
debate
someone about
who
who
she really
influence
is.
had started
Some
to
view
feel
her
too
as a
independent,
woman unfairly
too
targeted
unpredictable,
because she
because
defies
Meghan had
convention
become her
and
own
refuses
brand.
to conform.
Others
Separate
see
from
her
the
as a
royal
master of
establishment,
image control,
separate from
someone
Hollywood,
skilled at hiding
even in
inconvenient
some
truths
ways,
behind
separate from
charisma
Harry.
and carefully chosen
That
words.
kind
In
of
that
autonomy,
context, the alleged
especially
daughter
from a
becomes
woman who
more
won't
than just
play
a
by the
rumor. She
unspoken
becomes a
rules,
symbol in the broader
makes
battle
certain
over
circles
Meghan's feels uneasy.
The story also
And when
forces
power feels
uncomfortable
threatened,
ethical
it
questions
doesn't make noise
into the spotlight.
If
Noel
simply
truly
tightens the
exists
gates
and is Meghan's
silently,
child, what does it mean to live
permanently.
erased from your mother's
Still,
public
if there's
story?
one
How
thing
would it
Meghan
feel
has
to
always
watch the
mastered,
world celebrate
it's the
her
pivot.
fairy tale wedding while you
Every
remain
time she's
invisible?
written
That
off,
emotional
she reappears with a
is
new
what makes
identity.
this rumor so
From
compelling.
suits
It's
to
not just
royalty,
gossip.
it
From
strikes at
podcasts
universal
to
fears and
Netflix.
desires about family,
Her story has
abandonment,
never followed
and
a straight
identity.
line.
Whether true or not,
It bends,
sparks
it
a
reacts,
deeper
it
conversation
reinvents.
about how
That
ambition and personal
unpredictability might
choices
scare
ripple
fashion
outwards,
houses,
affecting lives
but it's
that were
also
never
what
meant
makes
to
her
be caught
dangerous
in
to
the glare
call
of
out.
fame.
Secrets have
Word
a way
is,
of
she's
haunting
already
people,
plotting her next
especially
move.
when they clash
The
with
talk,
the image they've
she's
worked so
shifting
hard to
focus.
create.
Meghan's
Stepping
life has
away from
always been
Europe's
built around
cold
a story of
corridors,
reinvention,
an
and leaning
actress
into
who broke
American
barriers,
fashion
a
instead.
duchess who defied royal
Labels with
convention,
edge,
and a public
purpose,
figure who
and less
champions
obsession
truth
with
and
pedigree.
authenticity.
But the
Think
whispers
Ralph
of a
Lauren,
hidden child
Prabal
strike
Gurung,
directly at the heart of that
even
narrative.
up and
It's the
coming
kind of
sustainable
rumor that
brands that
lingers
would kill for
because,
her
even
kind of
if
spotlight.
untrue,
It thrives
because in
on
the U.S.,
contradiction.
the idea
Meghan
of a
still
woman
has an
preaching
audience,
transparency
and
while
American
allegedly
fashion,
concealing the most
it doesn't
personal
worship
secret of all.
legacy.
That contrast
It
is simply
celebrates
too sharp for the
reinvention.
public to ignore.
They don't care where
Speculation
you've been.
intensified
They
when
care
Meghan
where you're
herself
headed.
seemed to
But the stakes
unintentionally
this
feed
time
in
are
that now
higher.
infamous
If she
Netflix
misreads the
moment where she
moment,
laughed about
if
the
her brand
child you'd
launch
never heard
stumbles,
of, what may
or if
have
she
been
goes
an
quiet
innocent
without
joke
strategy,
turned into an internet fixation.
she risks
To her,
fading
it
for
might
real.
have been nothing more than
That's
a
the
playful
brutal
comment.
truth
But to
about modern
millions
celebrity.
already primed with theories,
Silence
it
can be
sounded
power.
like a confession
Or it
wrapped
can
in
be the
humor.
beginning
That's how
of
gossip
disappearance.
works.
Once the seed
And
is
no one
planted,
wants to be
every
remembered
laugh,
as
every
a headline
phrase,
from
every
3
missing
seasons ago.
detail becomes
Still,
evidence
those who
in the
work
public
closely
eye.
with
And
her
for
say
Meghan,
one
who
thing
spent
with certainty.
years fighting the media's
Meghan isn't
distorted
finished.
narratives,
It's
one
another
former
storm where
stylist
her
even
own
called her
words have become
a chess
weapons
player
against her.
who
The
happens to
potential
wear great
fallout
clothes.
from such a revelation
She doesn't
would be
move in
unlike
haste.
anything we've
She
seen.
studies the
Imagine
board,
a woman
waits
in
for
her
her
30s
opening,
stepping
and when she
forward,
finally
claiming
makes
to
a
be
move,
Meghan's biological
it's intentional.
daughter.
The media
If
reaction
she decides
would be
to build her
instant,
own fashion
global,
label
and unrelenting.
not as a
Every
side
piece
venture,
of Meghan's
but as
past
a
would be
serious,
re-examined.
high-end
Every
contender.
timeline,
Every sealed
it could
record,
flip the
every
narrative overnight.
unexplained gap.
The
thrust
same
under a
luxury
microscope
house for the
that
royal
turned their
family,
backs
already
might
burdened
one
by
day be waiting in
generations of
line to
scandal.
collaborate.
It would unleash
Because
yet
in
another
fashion,
wave of scrutiny.
tides
And for
turn
Harry,
fast
the man
when
who
relevance
walked away from
returns.
royalty to
And that
protect his
return
family,
won't be
the idea
dictated
that
by
his
insiders
insiders
or
or
palace
palace could feel
whispers.
like the ultimate
It'll
betrayal,
come from
not
the
just
public,
of him, but
if
of the
people keep
entire
watching,
story they've built
keep
together.
clicking,
There's also
keep
the question
caring.
of motive.
The
Why would
brands will
Meghan
follow.
hide such a truth?
They always do
real.
when there's
Some
money to
point
be
to
made.
ambition.
Because
In
loyalty
Hollywood
and
success
fashion,
often
that's a
favors
myth.
those who appear
Relevance
unburdened,
is the only
fresh,
religion
and free to seize
and Meghan knows
opportunity.
that
A
better than
teenage
most.
marriage and a child
This kind
could
of
have complicated
silence.
that path.
Others
It's not
argue
new
it
to
might
her.
have been about
She's
survival.
lived through
A
it
young
before.
woman in a strict
In
Catholic school
tabloids,
from a
behind
fractured
palace
family
walls,
could have
in
felt
boardrooms
cornered
full
by
of polite
shame or
smiles
social
and hidden
pressure.
agendas.
If a baby truly existed,
But she
leaving
also
it in
knows
the
how to
care of
shatter
another
it.
family might
Not
have
with
seemed like
outrage,
the only
but with
choice.
presence.
These theories sound
A
less
single
like
look,
tabloid
a
fantasy
controlled
and more
headline,
like tragic
a
human
return that
decisions. And
feels
that's what
inevitable,
makes them harder to
not
dismiss.
announced.
The Giuliano family,
So what's
often
next for
mentioned
her?
at the center of the story,
Maybe she
has
built
remained
something
completely
entirely
silent.
her
No
own.
statements,
A
no
new
denials,
labels,
no
a
confirmations.
media
That
venture.
silence in
A
itself
lifestyle
adds to the
empire on her
intrigue.
terms.
Are they ignoring the rumors
maybe
because
she
they're
waits.
absurd,
Or because
Let the
speaking
frost
up would
thaw
reopen
while
doors
everyone else
best left
relaxes?
closed,
Silence
thinking
creates
she's done.
space for imagination.
Either
and
way,
imagination
if
is
there's
the
one thing
lifeblood
history
of
has proven
conspiracy
about
theories.
Meghan
As
Markle,
long as no
it's
definitive
this.
answers exist,
She
people
doesn't
will
stay
continue
sidelined
filling in
for
the
long.
blanks.
For
When
Meghan,
doors
the danger
close,
is that
she doesn't
perception
beg to
often
reopen them.
outweighs truth.
She's already been
ones.
painted by critics as
And when the
manipulative,
fashion
and by
world finally
supporters as
realizes
misunderstood.
what it
This
turned away
rumor
from,
only deepens that divide.
she might not
to her
even bother to
detractors,
answer
it's
the
proof
knock.
she's been